We're diving into some really powerful material today um, about breaking the cycle of abuse.
Yeah.
Specifically, we're going to be looking at denial.
Okay.
And we're taking a lot of what we're talking about today from chapter 4,
Okay.
which is called Coming Out of Denial
Yeah.
from the book Breaking the Cycle of Abuse.
Right.
So denial, this is like a big one, right? This is like a
Wow.
major psychological defense mechanism that can
It is.
make it really hard for us to even recognize
Yeah.
that past abuse or neglect happened,
Uh-huh.
let alone deal with how it impacts our lives today.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the things that we're going to be unpacking today is helping folks understand
Right.
how to identify those experiences,
Yep.
what some of the consequences of those experiences might be,
Mm-hmm.
and how to begin to heal from them.
Yeah, and this chapter starts off with kind of a pretty intense quote by Alice Miller.
Yeah.
The more we idealize the past, however, and refuse to acknowledge our childhood sufferings, the more we pass them on unconsciously to the next generation.
I think that quote is so powerful.
Yeah.
Because it really gets to the heart of how abuse can become cyclical
Yeah.
and how denial plays a key role in that.
So can we talk about why denial is so strong? Especially, I mean, when it comes from parents, like that just seems like the hardest.
Well, I think, if you think about it, denial shields us from the intense pain of acknowledging
Good.
that our parents, the people who are supposed to love and protect us,
Right.
could hurt us so deeply.
Yeah.
And so it's an instinctive response that
Yeah.
we have to protect that bond.
So our minds are just like, no, I can't
Yeah.
process that betrayal.
Yeah.
It didn't happen.
It's too much.
Okay.
Especially for children.
Yeah.
Children are wired to idealize their parents.
Right.
They depend on them for survival.
Uh,
So they need to believe that their parents are good and loving, even if their experiences say otherwise.
So that idealization almost feeds into
Absolutely.
the denial.
It creates this huge internal conflict for a child.
Okay.
Because on one hand, they're experiencing this abuse, but on the other hand, they're trying to hold on to that idealized image of their parents.
Yeah.
And in order to resolve that conflict,
Right.
their minds create defense mechanisms.
So like, what are we talking about here? What kind of defense mechanisms are we talking about?
Well, you can imagine a child who's convincing themselves that the abuse wasn't that bad,
Oh, wow.
or that it was done for their own good.
Oh.
Or maybe they start to find excuses for their parents' behavior,
Oh.
or even block out entire memories.
Wow.
And all of these are ways of minimizing,
Right.
rationalizing, or completely erasing the abuse
Yeah.
in order to protect that connection to their parents.
So it's a survival mechanism.
Exactly,
Like that.
to protect that core relationship, even if that relationship was harmful.
And even as adults, denial can stick around.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Because
If we confront the truth about our past, it can bring up all sorts of scary and difficult questions.
like how does this change how I see my family?
Right.
Do I need to confront them, or are my children safe around them?
All of those things.
Those are like
They're big things to grapple with.
big anxieties.
Yeah, and those are totally normal concerns.
Okay.
And we'll explore them in a little bit more depth later on in this
Yeah.
deep dive.
Okay.
But for now, let's just focus on letting the truth kind of emerge.
Yeah.
It's hard,
Okay.
but you deserve that clarity.
That makes sense one step at a time.
Yeah.
So to help us maybe start to do that, this chapter actually includes a questionnaire
Right.
to help identify
Yeah.
possible experiences of neglect or abuse from childhood.
I think it's a really powerful tool
Yeah.
because it can bring to light things that we might have normalized or minimized for years.
Yeah, before we get into the examples, I just want to say to you listening, like if any of this is stirring up stuff for you,
Right.
it's okay to pause
Take a break.
and come back to this
Yeah.
when you're ready.
Absolutely.
Self-care is the priority.
That's so important.
Uh-huh.
So it's heavy stuff and there's no rush.
Yeah, and we're not going to go through every single one on the list,
Yeah.
but we did want to pick out a few from each category and kind of see
Yeah.
if any of these resonate with you.
I think sometimes the less obvious examples
Yeah.
can be the most eye-opening.
Yeah, for sure.
Because sometimes abuse is so ingrained in our experience
Like-
that we don't even recognize it as such.
So for neglect, one that really hit me was forced you to live in an uninhabitable place.
Wow.
And it makes you realize that neglect isn't just about like a lack of love and attention,
Right.
but also about basic needs being unmet.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because I think that example really highlights that neglect can take so many forms. And
Yeah.
it can be just incredibly damaging to a child's development and
Yeah.
sense of safety.
Yeah. Moving on to emotional abuse, the
Yeah.
example that stood out to me was deliberately raised you as a member of the opposite sex.
Oh, wow.
And I can't imagine how deeply that would impact a child's sense of self.
It's such a poignant example because it shows how undermining a child's identity and self-expression
Yeah.
can actually be a form of abuse.
Right.
Forcing them to conform to an image that doesn't resonate with who they truly are
Mm.
can be incredibly harmful.
You're basically denying their true self,
Yeah.
which could have lifelong consequences, I imagine, for their self-esteem and their
It
relationships.
does, totally.
Then there's the physical abuse category, and one example from the book is medicated or drugged you when you were not ill.
Oh, that's chilling.
It is chilling.
It's chilling to think about someone using substances to control or subdue a child
Yeah.
instead of for their well-being.
Yeah.
And I think that example really highlights the importance of recognizing that abuse can manifest in ways that might not be immediately obvious.
And it's a violation of trust on like such a fundamental level.
Absolutely.
And then the last category is sexual abuse. And one example that really stayed with me is become preoccupied with the cleanliness of your genitals, tell you that your genitals were dirty, shameful, or evil.
It's so disturbing because it demonstrates how abusers can manipulate a child's understanding of their own body.
Yeah.
And it's a form of psychological manipulation that can lead to lifelong feelings of shame,
Yeah.
guilt, and distorted views of sexuality.
Wow.
The impact of that kind of abuse can be so profound and long-lasting.
Yeah. So as we're going through these examples, I just want to encourage you, again, to just reflect on your own experiences.
Yeah.
Did any of these resonate with you? It's okay if they did, and it's okay if they didn't.
It's a journey.
Yeah, this is a journey of self-discovery, and there's no right or wrong answer.
Your experience is valid no matter what.
Right. And this is just a starting point.
Yeah.
The book provides a much more comprehensive list of examples,
Right.
and it's important to explore those further if you feel ready to.
And I think the next step is understanding the damage that these different forms of abuse can cause.
Yeah, which is what we're going to get into after this.
It's important to understand that the damage from abuse isn't just about the immediate pain.
Right.
It can actually have like these really long-term effects.
So it's not something you just get over?
No, not at all.
Okay.
The book really dives into how those effects can like play out in adulthood.
Okay.
And it's pretty eye-opening stuff.
So like what are some of the specific impacts that the book talks about?
Well, for example, it highlights how neglect, both physical and emotional, can really lead to struggles
Okay.
with forming healthy attachments later on.
Oh, wow.
So a child who's been neglected might become overly clingy and dependent,
Okay.
or they might swing the other way and completely shut down emotionally
Right.
and be unable to connect with others.
That makes sense if you haven't had your own needs met consistently.
Right.
How do you even learn how to trust and rely on others?
How to even know what a healthy relationship looks like. And these early experiences can even affect how someone parents their own children later on.
Okay.
You know, they might repeat those patterns unconsciously
Oh, wow.
or overcompensate in ways that aren't actually helpful.
That makes me think about the intergenerational aspect of abuse
Yeah.
that we touched on earlier.
Right.
And the book states pretty bluntly, physical abuse breeds abusers or victims. It is just that simple,
Oh,
which is so sad to think about.
it's heartbreaking.
That ripple effect, how...
But I think understanding this dynamic is a crucial step towards breaking the cycle.
Okay.
The book also talks about the connection between emotional abuse
Okay.
and mental health challenges.
So experiencing emotional abuse as a child can have a lasting impact
Absolutely.
on your mental well-being as an adult.
The book explains that emotional abuse can lead to depression, anxiety, low self-esteem,
Wow.
and it can make it really difficult to form healthy relationships later in life.
It's almost like those negative messages and experiences from childhood
Yeah.
become internalized.
Yeah.
And they shape how you see yourself
Totally.
and how you interact with the world.
It's like you're carrying this unrecognized sadness or anxiety from
Right.
those experiences even now.
Yeah, and it makes me think about that questionnaire example we talked about earlier about being raised as the opposite gender.
Right.
Like, that must be so damaging to a child's sense of self.
Incredibly damaging.
Yeah.
And it's a good reminder that abuse isn't always physical.
Right.
It can be emotional, psychological, even spiritual.
And the book also talks about how sexual abuse can lead to a lot of difficulty
Right.
with intimacy and relationships later in life.
Survivors of sexual abuse might have trouble with intimacy with sexual desire.
Okay.
They may experience sexual dysfunction,
Wow.
It can also lead to things like promiscuity
Okay.
or sexual addictions
As ways of coping with that trauma.
as ways of trying to reclaim a sense of control
Right.
over their sexuality.
After having it violated.
Exactly. And it highlights the complexity, I think, of the healing process. It's
Wow.
not just about addressing the abuse itself,
Mm-hmm.
but also about untangling all the ways that it has impacted you
Okay.
on all these different levels.
Yeah.
Emotional, physical, relational,
Yeah.
even spiritual.
The book also talks about the importance of grieving the past
Yeah.
and how that can be a big part of the healing process.
It's huge.
And it even compares it to like grieving a loved one,
Right.
like with similar stages.
Of denial, anger, sadness, and acceptance.
Yeah.
It's a powerful analogy because it acknowledges the profound loss
Okay.
that comes with recognizing the truth.
So you're essentially grieving the childhood you should have had,
Exactly.
the innocence that was stolen from you.
And that's a process that deserves time and space.
And it sounds like that process can be really intense, emotionally speaking.
Yeah.
Like, what does the book suggest for navigating those difficult emotions?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that there's no right or wrong way to grieve.
It's a very unique process for everyone.
Yeah.
The key is to allow yourself to feel the emotions as they come,
Oh.
without judgment or pressure.
So don't try to push them away.
No.
Just let them be.
Exactly.
It's also important to remember that healing isn't linear.
Mm-hmm.
There will be ups and downs.
Absolutely.
Moments of progress.
And moments of regression.
Yeah.
So self-compassion
Okay.
is crucial.
Being kind and patient with yourself throughout the process.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the book offers some practical tips
Yeah.
for dealing with those intense emotions.
Like breathing into the emotion,
Okay.
just like you would breathe through physical pain,
Okay.
and it can help to ground you in the present moment.
Okay, that makes sense.
It also suggests reminding yourself that these are memories from the past.
Right.
They're not happening to you right now.
That's such a powerful reminder.
It is.
It's so easy to get caught up in the
Yeah.
emotions and feel like you're reliving the trauma
Absolutely.
right now in this moment. And I think another important point the book makes is that you have more power now
Okay.
as an adult than you did as a child.
Right.
You have choices, resources, coping skills
Right.
that you didn't have back then.
It's not about realizing you're not that helpless child anymore.
Exactly.
You have the power to change things now.
You're not defined by what happened to you.
Right.
You have the ability to heal
Yeah.
and create a different future for yourself.
Emotions.
And remember, even the painful ones.
Even the painful
Those
ones.
inherently bad.
Emotions serve a purpose.
Okay.
They're signals
Okay.
telling us something about our experience.
So instead of trying to suppress them, we need to learn to listen
Exactly.
to what they're trying to tell us.
Allowing yourself to feel and express those hidden emotions from the past
Yeah.
can actually be a crucial part of the healing process.
And that's where this idea of finding a compassionate witness comes in.
It does.
So what exactly does that mean? Well, finding a compassionate witness is about having someone safe to talk to, someone who can listen without judgment. And that alone can be incredibly healing.
It's about having someone who can hold space for your pain
Yes.
and help you to process those difficult emotions.
Exactly. Someone who validates your experience
Right.
and helps you to feel seen and heard.
Which is often what was missing during the abuse itself.
Exactly.
So it's not just about talking about the abuse,
Right.
but about feeling truly understood and supported.
It's about having someone who believes you,
Right.
who doesn't judge you,
Yeah.
and who helps you to process these really complex emotions that
Yeah.
arise from these experiences.
And this can be anyone, right? Like a friend, a family member, a therapist.
Yeah, anyone who can provide that safe and compassionate space for you
Okay.
to share your truth.
Oh.
It's important to choose someone that you trust and feel comfortable with,
Right.
someone who won't try to minimize your experience
Right.
or tell you how you should feel.
So it's not about getting advice.
Right.
It's about having someone who can simply listen
Yeah.
and be present with you in your pain.
Exactly. It's about sharing that burden
Yeah.
and feeling less alone in the process.
The book also mentions that this process of facing the truth and grieving the past can be ongoing.
It can.
It might not happen all at once.
It's like grieving the loss of a loved one with
Yeah.
those similar stages of
Yeah.
denial, anger, sadness, and acceptance.
Right. So you're essentially grieving the loss of the childhood you should have had
Exactly.
and the innocence that was stolen from you.
And The book really emphasizes that this grieving process is very unique for everyone.
Okay.
There's no right or wrong way to do it.
Right.
It's about allowing yourself to feel the emotions as they come up,
Right.
without judgment or pressure.
And recognizing that it's a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
There will be ups and downs,
Setbacks and breakthrough.
moments of progress and moments of regression.
So patience and self-compassion are key.
Absolutely. And the book offers some practical advice
It does.
for navigating those intense emotions.
Yeah.
What kind of advice?
Well, it talks about the importance of breathing into the emotion,
Okay.
much like you would breathe through physical pain.
Okay.
Reminding yourself that these are memories from the past,
Right.
not happening to you in the present,
Right.
and recognizing that you have survived them.
Right. And it's so easy to get caught up in the emotions and feel like you're reliving the trauma
In the present moment.
in the present moment. Yeah.
Yes, and the book also really highlights the importance of remembering that as an adult,
Okay.
you have more power than you did as a child.
Oh.
You have choices, resources, coping skills
Right.
that you didn't have back then.
It's about reclaiming your agency and recognizing that you're not helpless in the face of these past experiences.
You have the power to change things now.
Right. And it also emphasizes that emotions, even the painful ones,
Even the painful ones.
are not inherently bad.
They serve a purpose.
What do you mean?
Well, emotions are signals.
Okay.
They're telling us something about our experience. They
Yeah.
help us to process
Right.
and make sense of what's happened.
So rather than trying to suppress them or avoid them, we need to learn to listen to them.
Exactly.
Okay.
The book actually suggests that allowing yourself to feel and express those hidden emotions from the past
Yeah.
can actually be a crucial part of the healing process.
It's about letting the emotions flow through you rather than bottling them up inside.
Exactly. And this ties back to the importance of having a compassionate witness.
Okay.
Someone who can be there with you as you're experiencing these intense emotions,
Okay.
providing that support and validation.
It's about creating a safe container
Yeah.
for those emotions to be felt and released.
Yes. And the book also acknowledges that this process of facing the truth and grieving the past can be ongoing.
Right.
It might not happen all at once.
So there's no timeline for healing.
No, it's a journey that unfolds at its own pace. And the book really encourages readers to be patient with themselves,
Right.
recognizing that they might go in and out of denial
Okay.
as they're processing these difficult truths.
Yeah, it's a reminder that healing isn't linear.
It's not.
There will be setbacks and breakthroughs along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really sounds like acknowledging the healing isn't linear is so important.
It is.
It kind of takes the pressure off
Yeah,
of needing to have it all figured out right away.
absolutely.
Like, it's okay if it takes time.
It is.
It's okay if you go back and forth.
Mm,
And this chapter ends with a really encouraging message.
it does.
Now that you know the truth is yours to use for recovery. You have a better idea of what physical and emotional pain you endured and what long-term effects you are suffering from. There is healing in discovering the truth, facing it, and finally in accepting it.
It's like, okay, this is hard stuff,
Right.
but now you have this knowledge,
Okay.
this truth,
Okay.
and it can be the key
Yeah.
to unlocking a whole new level of healing.
It's about reclaiming your story
Absolutely.
and choosing how you want to move forward.
It's powerful stuff.
So for someone listening who's ready to start that healing journey,
Right.
what are some concrete steps they can take?
Well, the book goes into a lot more detail about this in later chapters,
Okay.
but I think finding a therapist
Oh.
who specializes in trauma recovery
Yeah.
can be a huge game changer.
Yeah.
Having that professional guidance can make such a difference
Okay.
in processing these experiences and developing healthy coping mechanisms.
That makes sense. And what about support groups?
Yeah.
It seems like connecting with others who've been through similar experiences.
Support groups can be incredible for
Yeah.
breaking that sense of isolation
Right.
that so many survivors feel.
Yeah, it's so validating
It is.
to know you're not alone in this.
And to learn from others who are maybe further along in
Yeah.
their healing journey.
And there's something so powerful about being able to share your story and be met with understanding instead of judgment.
Absolutely. It can really help to shift that feeling of shame
Yeah.
that so often accompanies abuse.
Instead of feeling like something's wrong with you,
Right.
you realize that these are common experiences
Yeah.
and that healing is possible.
Exactly.
And it's okay if it takes time.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Healing is not a race.
Healing's not a race.
It's about taking things at your own pace.
Yeah.
Being gentle with yourself along the way.
Right. There might be times when you need to step back and take a break,
Absolutely.
and that's perfectly fine.
That's more than fine.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Love that.
You have to prioritize your own self-care and well-being
So true.
throughout the process.
Remember, asking for help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
That's a good one.
It takes real courage
Yeah.
to confront the truth about your past
Yeah.
and to commit to healing.
And in doing so, you're not only helping yourself,
Right.
but potentially breaking the cycle for future generations.
That ripple effect can be so profound,
It can.
changing the lives of your children, grandchildren, and beyond.
It's a beautiful legacy to
Yeah.
leave behind.
It is.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
we want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Now that you've begun to unpack the truth about your past,
Right.
what steps can you take to support your own healing and ensure that you don't pass on any unhealthy patterns
Right.
to future generations?
That's the question.
It's a big question,
It is.
but it's one worth reflecting on.
Absolutely. And remember, there are resources available
Right.
to support you on this journey.
Yeah, you don't have to do this alone.
You don't.
You can find more information and support at mention a relevant organization or website. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.